idea for this video because I often take my cousin and roommate, Natalie, to go climbing with me. Since she's not a regular climber, she gets kind of confused when I throw out these terms that I assume everyone in the climbing gym understands. And so she told me to make a video with the most commonly used bouldering terms that she's heard me say but not really explain. And so on the screen right now, I'm going to display all the words that I'm going to talk about. These are the words that she's heard me say out loud and she doesn't really understand what they mean. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a timestamp of each definition in the description. So if you know most of these words but you are unsure about some of them, you can just like skip ahead. I don't want to waste your time. A little preface is that I'm mostly going to be using the term bouldering instead of climbing. I do understand that like a lot of these terms fall under the general umbrella like climbing sphere, but since I pretty much just boulder, I'm going to be using the term bouldering instead of climbing. Obviously, if it seems like the terms do translate, then they do. The first couple of terms that I want to get through are the holds that your little hands are going to be holding. Bouldering Bobat, I think, released a really good video that explains it incredibly. They go through the different holds and they actually show them in front of you, but I'll just go through them really quickly right now. Pretty much no matter where you're climbing, the holds that you're going to be holding are categorized into one of four. And so these would be jugs, slopers, pinches, and crimps. A jug is, in my opinion, the easiest thing to hold. It's something that you can get your entire hand around and hold kind of like this. Not super technically difficult to hold on to because you can get your entire palm and your fingers around it. The next type of hold that I'll talk about is a pinch. A pinch is something that you grab like this. So a pinch is going to require a little bit more forearm strength than a jug. When I'm holding a pinch, usually my four fingers are on the other side of my thumb. I just explained to you what a pinching movement is and I feel really silly for doing so. A sloper is interesting because there isn't really anything great to hold on to. On the wall, this usually looks like a rounded half sphere. And in order to hold on to these super well, you're going to have to rely more on adjusting your body weight so that you're like hanging down on it. Last, not least, are the crimps. Crimp, even saying the word crimp to me is like painful because what crimps are holds that you can only get, I think, your first little finger pads on. Depending on how you're holding them, you can actually injure yourself if you're a beginner and don't know how to hold on to them. Next, what I'm going to talk about is terms that describe bouldering moves. Beta. Beta is one of those words that you have to know, and what it is describing the particular sequence of movements that you need to take to solve a problem. And I don't know if I say this later, but a problem is basically just a route. So one bouldering route equals one problem. Beta can describe the sequence of moves that you need to take from the start to the finish of the climb, but I think beta can also refer to just like one part of the climb. What's the beta to this particular move? You could also say what's the beta of the entire climb. So beta just describes the way that you climb up something. And there can be multiple different betas for one climb. The next term is crux. The crux of a climb is its most difficult part. The crux can kind of be subjective, like I said, depending on your body type and what part of the climb is difficult for you. The crux just generally means what part of this climbing problem is the most difficult. Next term is a fun one, barn door. What a barn door is an unintentional swing that your body does when you just basically fuck up a climb. I'm pretty sure a barn door is almost always unintentional. You can recover from it. When I think of barn doors, I usually think of your center of balance just being so wonky and so outside of where it should be that in order to compensate, your body just swings around really slowly, kind of like a barn door would. So that's where the term comes from. That's what a barn door is. Flag. This is one of the first terms that I learned when bouldering, and it just made me, it opened new doors for me. Flag means to dangle one of your limbs, usually your leg, but sometimes your arm, in order to counterbalance for a movement on the opposite side of your body. What flagging does is it just counterbalances any movement that you do with one of your limbs. Important technique to know and to practice as soon as you start bouldering. I highly recommend this technique. Ding! Campus. To campus something means to climb without using any footholds or using your feet. So there are some very fun people who love just climbing up climbs and making it a little game to see whether they can campus a climb without using their feet. So this is like a fun thing to do sometimes when you're like showing off. If you're like on a date and you brought your date to the climbing gym and you want to like show them how strong you are, great thing to do. But it's also something that will be necessary at some point or the other in certain climbs. But that's what campus means, to climb up something only using your arms and letting your feet just dangle. The next word is one of my favorites, and it is dino. And we're not talking Jurassic, Cretaceous. We're talking dyno, as in dynamic. What a dyno is a movement from one part of the climb to the next, while having some part of your body being in no contact with the wall. The next term is static, which is the opposite of dynamic. So static usually to me means something very controlled and a way to move from one part of the climb to the next while maintaining a lot of control and moving kind of slowly. When I think of static, I think of someone moving very slowly and very controlled. Mantle. This is an interesting one because I'm not sure I can describe it very well. I think I just have to show you. But it's a way of getting from hanging on a hold to standing on it like this. What it is a burly exercise for your triceps, depending on how hard the mantle is. So I'll just do that movement again. Taking you from hanging, could also be on one or like this, and then pushing yourself up and converting that hanging motion to one where you're pushing like this instead. So that would be mantle. Next, smear. The first couple of times I said it, I would always invariably say schmear, like I was a bagel or something. Smear is a type of movement that you do with mostly your feet, but I think you can do it with your arms as well, and even your body. What it is to maintain contact with a wall that's not necessarily on a hold. Sometimes climbs are just mean and they don't provide you with any footholds, and so what you have to do is just smear your feet the entire way and hopefully don't cut your feet. And cut your feet means an unintentional break from the wall where your feet just fall out from underneath you and you're left swinging. Maybe you're still hanging onto the wall, but that's what cutting your feet means. To flash a climb is to climb from start to finish on your first try and complete a climb. And you can get a lot of clout from it. If you're doing it and a bunch of people are watching, you flash something, feels good, man. A side pull. A side pull is really fun. Self-explanatory. You've got a hold over here and you pull yourself in the direction of the hold. So you're not necessarily climbing upwards, maybe you're climbing on a traverse problem. That was also the Wi-Fi password at my gym a couple months ago. Heel hook and toe hook. If you're gonna get into fancy footwork, obviously gonna have to know these terms. What a heel hook is also self-explanatory. You have a foothold and you hook your heel on it like this. And what you would do is use your heel to pull on that there foothold and hopefully you don't pop off. A toe hook would be the same thing as a heel hook except with your toe. Matching, very important word. If someone tells you to match your hands, that means they want your hands on the same hold. If someone tells you to match your feet, it means that they want both of your feet on the same hold. Do all sorts of hand-foot matching as well, like you're in a Twister game. Send. To send a problem is to complete it. This is a fun little word that we like to use instead of completing a problem, just because it's like a little more informal, and to say something like send it is just a fun, more interesting way of saying that you completed a problem. Because we're not in math class, we're having a blast. Send it. To send a problem, to complete a problem. Okay, the next couple of terms are going to be miscellaneous. They aren't in any particular order, so forgive me if it seems like it's all over the place. Arête. That is the way that us Americans pronounce it. What an arête is an outward facing corner or edge of either a climbing wall or like a climbing feature outside. Outside, this is kind of like where two walls of a boulder or mountain meet, and you can kind of use that as a feature in order to climb up, usually like this. And in a gym, also same thing, a corner where two walls meet. An arête, whether it's this or this or this, an arête is an arête, no matter how weird it gets. A volume. I think a volume is a term that you're mostly gonna hear in an indoor gym, and what it is, it's not necessarily a hold, but it is something that you drill into the wall to add a different facet to the original wall. And you can also drill like additional holds onto a volume. Sometimes they're there by themselves. In my gym, if you have a volume that's on the wall, it is fair game. You can touch it, you can stand on it, you can climb on it. As long as you're not touching any of the different colored holds on it that are not part of your problem, that are on the volume, you're good to go. The next two terms are overhung and slab. These are used to describe a type of problem or a type of like wall that you're climbing on. What I consider overhung, just me colloquially, I don't know if there's like an official definition, is any wall or any problem or any part of a problem that is less than 90 degrees, meaning that you're leaning back when you're climbing it. And so with overhung climbs, it's going to tire you out a lot faster, and you have to really be mindful of your footwork when you're on overhung climbs. When I think of a slab, on the other hand, I think of something that is a little bit more than 90 degrees, a little bit leaning forward. Not so cool if you fall, because if it's more than 90 degrees and you fall uncontrolled, then you might be scraping the entire wall on your way down and hitting all the holds while you are tumbling a couple of feet down. Traverse. A traverse is a type of problem or a part of a problem where your body is moving sideways. Instead of moving upwards like most people associate with climbing, you are moving that way or that way. A traverse is also an interesting exercise just to do in the gym, albeit an annoying one if there are a lot of people climbing. What people do usually is this drill where you traverse the entirety or like a large portion of the wall, not paying attention to what color or what problems the holds belong to, working your way across the climbing wall and just holding on to whatever holds that you can find. As long as you're not disrupting any of the people who are climbing on the wall as you just zip on by, then it's a cool training drill. Pumped. Pumped is something that you will feel if you've been climbing a little too hard and your muscles are a little tired. It's something that I definitely felt a lot when I first was starting climbing, and it's something that I felt a lot in my forearms. I think that it's called pumped because when you've worked your forearms so much, you can actually feel them getting more turgid, which is an awful word, but you can feel them getting pumped with blood and with all of that juice that's gonna make them sore the next day and stronger the day after. And then also you can make a portmanteau out of flash and pump and create flash pump, which means you went to the gym, you saw a super sick climb that was a little bit difficult that you just wanted to get your hands on, one that you were maybe not super ready to climb right away. You get on it, you try your best, maybe you send it, maybe you don't, you fall off, and you realize, what have I done? My arms are already pumped and I just got here. A pulley is a type of injury that I'm sure you can get in other sports and any other aspect of life. Flapper, also not super fun. A flapper is a skin tear that happens in your fingers, maybe your hands, and what it is just like the name suggests, a skin tear in your fingers that will flap in the wind. Really not fun. If you get a flapper, wrap it up in some tape. You can keep going, but take care of it. It will heal, but it is gross and it stings. Project. A project is a climb that you can't get on your first try and might take a couple of tries in order to get, but it's something that you're working towards. A project is kind of like a goal for yourself. Project is a climb that you haven't got yet, but you're striving to climb, and one day you'll definitely get it. Spray. To spray beta is when someone's like on the ground watching someone else climb and they're giving them all the moves, all the beta, whether or not it's actually requested. Sometimes it can be annoying if you're spraying beta because you might not want to know what the secret is. You might not want to know what's in the secret sauce. You might want to figure that out for yourself. And so if someone's spraying beta, it might be helpful if you want help, but I think usually a spray of beta is something that has not been requested. Dab. To dab on something is to touch a hold that is not included in the climb that you're currently climbing. This hold would not be on. When you're asking if a climbing hold is on, what you're doing is asking whether the climbing hold is included in the route that you're climbing. And so if you touch or hold something that is not included in your particular route, then that would be called a dab. You can also do something like dab on the floor, dab on whatever, dab on your friend. That would be kind of considered cheating, but like no one really cares. I mean, like if you want to be a stickler about it, then you'll call out someone for dabbing, but like most of the time if you see someone dab, just like keep your mouth shut. It's whatever. They didn't climb exactly perfectly how they were supposed to, but Like, don't be a jerk about it. High gravity days. I have a lot of these, and what I use high gravity day to describe is a day where I feel like gravity is working a little extra because I'm huffing, I'm puffing, and I cannot get up and off the ground for the life of me. So it's just a thing that you say, hey, turn to your friend. It's just a high gravity day. That's, you know, that's why I'm falling off is a high gravity day. Yeah. What can you do? Maybe next day they'll dial it down a little bit, right? Those were all of my bouldering terms. It took me a long time to get through all of those, but if none of you got anything out of this, I hope at least my cousin, Natalie, will now be able to use some of these terms when I take her to the gym next time. I chose these words because they're words that you probably gotta know, and hopefully it cleared up a little bit. If you're just starting bouldering, welcome. I'm stoked that you are joining the bouldering fam. And if you're joining the bouldering fam, you might as well subscribe to my channel. I've got a fam right here. We're all friends. Anyway, I've been rambling for over a minute now, so I think it's probably time to end this in the most natural way possible, which is not an easy thing to do as a YouTuber. All right, peace.